heavy agenda today. So good afternoon. Welcome to the June 10th, 2021 quarterly ERC Advisory Board meeting. This is our first virtual meeting using Zoom, so excuse any first-time technical issues that may arise. That was in my script without knowing that there would already be technical issues. So thank you for your patience. Dr. Linda Hargrove has her information on the screen, so please contact her if you're having any other issues. But note, we're recording the meeting as we have done in the past, and it is streaming on the Coordinating Board's YouTube page since this is a public meeting. However, the only people in the actual Zoom meeting are the board members and researchers who will provide information about their proposals. So, call to order. First call of order is I'm a new face to this, as you may have noticed. My name is Melissa Humphreys, and I'm the Director for P16 Data Analytics and Research at the Coordinating Board. And as was announced in the last quarterly board meeting, I have been appointed as the interim chair of the ERC board by the Commissioner of Higher Education, Harrison Keller, since Dr. Julia Eklund is retired as of May. We already missed her. But I am looking forward to working with you all and appreciate, again, lots of patience expected of you today, but appreciate your patience as I work through this first meeting. And before I move forward, let's take roll, make sure we have a quorum. So if you'll just tell me if you're here as I read your name. Catherine Horn.
Here.
Celeste Alexander.
Here.
Greg Branch. I thought I saw him.
I'm sorry, I'm here.
There you are. Okay. Sarah will not be joining. She did let us know. And Teresa said she will join later if she can. But either one of you, if you made it, let me know. I'll wait a moment. Okay. Linda Rosca from TEA.
Present.
Great. Adam Leonard from TWC.
Yes, I'm here.
Wonderful. And
Feel free.
Gary Dworkin from
Yes.
U of H. Wonderful. So we have a quorum. Appreciate you all being here. Next, we did have a request from a researcher to move the order of a proposal in the agenda. So the researcher from UT Austin Proposal 158, which right now is number 6 in the list, has requested to be moved to the end. And we wanted to ensure this was okay with the board members before we made this change. Any objections to this?
No.
Okay, then we'll just move it around. I'll note when we get to that one that we're skipping over number 6 and we'll save it till the end. So the next remark I want to make is to address that Dr. Gary Dworkin has announced his retirement, and this will be his last meeting with the board. I want to formally thank him for his work on this board. And although this is my first ERC board meeting, Dr. Dworkin's name came up often as I was in talks with various people about this transition, and as a person who is thoughtful and trustworthy and knowledgeable and such a valuable member to the board. On a personal note, as I was a student of sociology, and specifically sociology of education, I've read, studied, and cited his work in my own training. So I know his deep knowledge in this area, and his background with performing really high quality scholarly research has made him an integral part of this board. So I want to formally thank you, Dr. Dworkin, for being a part of this.
Thank you, Melissa, and thanks to all the members of the board. It's been a wonderful experience.
Great. We're glad to have you for this meeting, though. And best of luck. And we will move on to the next part of the agenda, which is consideration and possible action to approve additional data requests. So I say let's just get started because there is a long list. Just as a note, for those joining for the first time, this agenda item and the next regarding extensions are discussed by the board, but we don't ask researchers to present any background, although if they are present for possible clarifying questions, that's great. Whereas agenda item 4, when we're approving new research projects, we do open the floor for the researchers to provide some overview of the project. So the first item is a data request and extension request. This is project University of Houston 010, Relay Graduate School of Education Impact Analysis for Texas Teachers. And the researchers are requesting a 1-year extension to June 6, 2022, and requesting to add additional supplemental data. Is that correct, Kathy? Am I representing that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments on behalf of the board to both the extension and the additional data request? None? All right. Well, do I have a motion that includes approval for both the additional data request and extension?
I move to approve the extension and the supplemental data request.
Branch, I second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, motion passes. Okay, move to the next data request. Linda.
Sorry.
There we go. So the next data request is for University of Houston 030, exploring the changes and impacts of demographic representation of the Texas STEM teaching workforce. This is requesting additional supplemental data be added, an indicator for whether a teacher was part of the specific teacher preparation programs. Are there any questions or comments on this request? All right. Do I have a motion to approve this data request?
This is Celeste. I move to approve the additional supplemental data.
Right. Second. Great. I saw your lips move, but I didn't hear you, so I don't know if you're on mute.
This is Kathy. I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next we have, I'll wait till the slide moves so we're all on the same page. UTD 138, the efficacy of accelerated developmental ed reforms in Texas. This is a request for TSIA raw score files to be added as supplemental data to the project. Are there any questions or comments? My only question was the specific dates being requested. I don't think I saw that in the...
Yeah, so this is Trey Miller, PI for this project. Thanks for that question, Melissa. So I think we are approved for data for the 2015 through 2019 cohorts of entering first time in college students. And I think what we would do is go back and we followed a process in a similar project where we started capturing scores for those students entering in those fall cohorts, starting at like May, in start of the summer, end of spring, prior to enrollment, and
Right.
use those scores. And oftentimes there were multiple, scores, but we tried to capture the first score during that period
Okay.
to use. So we can work with, you on and your team on, the process for linking the appropriate scores.
Yes,
I think
that's great. I just wondered if we might need to add the dates somewhere in the documentation. Of
Sure,
what-
I can add that for the cohorts. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments or questions? If not, do I have a motion for approval that will add the dates to the request?
This is Kathy. I move to approve this this request with the dates added as an amendment.
Great.
I second. This is Celeste.
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, passes. Great, moving right along. Next agenda item is for consideration to approve extension requests. The first extension was part of the first additional data request. So we're starting with extension 2 here, which is high school course choice in a dynamic tournament of college admissions. This is a request until May 2022. Is that correct?
Yes. I'm sorry, Melissa. May I say just 30 seconds on this?
Yes, please.
This is Kathy. I apologize. This was actually recently approved in the last advisory board meeting. The researcher is going to be out of the country over the next several months, and that's what's prompting the extension request.
Are there any questions or comments about this from the board? All right. Do we have a motion regarding this extension?
So moved, Gary.
Grant, second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. Extension 3. UT Austin 117. Examining enrollment of homeless youth in higher ed. This is a request for a 1-year extension to May 2022. Any comments or questions on this? All right, do I have a motion?
Kathy, I move to approve.
Grant, second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Oh, excuse me, who made the motion?
Kathy did.
Kathy, thank you.
I got myself in third person. I did. It's Kathy.
All right. Extension 4, UT Austin 121, climbing the job ladder with student debt. This is a request for a 1-year extension to May 2022. Any comments or questions? All right, do I have a motion for approval?
This is Kathy. I move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Did I hear a second from Greg? Sorry.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Just want to make sure. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Right, extension 5, UT Dallas 108. Educational decisions and outcomes with transfer options. Request for a 1-year extension to June 2022. Any comments or questions on this? Right, to have a motion for approval?
I move to approve this extension.
Thank you, Celeste. Second.
Kathy, I second.
Second, Gary.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And then last extension, extension 6, College Access and Success, UTD 094. Request for a 1-year extension through March 2022. Any comments or questions on this? All right, motion for approval.
This is Celeste. Oh,
That's Celeste.
okay. I move to approve this extension.
I second. This is Kathy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you all. You're making this not as hard as I thought it would be for my first semester. So thank you for this support. All right, so now to the meat of this. We have lots of new proposals to discuss. And let's note that all the proposals do include remote access requests. So all motions will need to approve both parts of it, the proposal and remote access. So we will start with proposal 1, University of Houston 034, expanding or restricting choice, the impact from removing the requirement of Algebra 2 on Texas high school graduates. Do we have any researchers with us today to present a brief overview?
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful.
Alyssa Howell. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alyssa Howell. I'm requesting approval for proposal number 1. As you see, the title is Expanding or Restricting Choice, the impact of removing the requirement for Algebra 2 on high school graduates. When House Bill 5 went into effect during the 2014-2015 school year, students were allowed the option of selecting the foundation graduate plan as well as additional endorsement areas. The goal was really to provide students with more opportunities to study a specific area in more depth. And only one of those endorsement pathways requires that students take Algebra 2 as a graduation requirement, and that's that STEM pathway. Students who opt for the other pathways may still choose to take Algebra 2, but it's not a requirement for their high school graduation. And Algebra 2 is particularly important to track since numerous research studies have found that students who enroll in Algebra 2 have an advantage over their counterparts who do not take this course when applying for college admission. And that's why the purpose of this study is to understand the impact, if there is any, that removing the requirement for Algebra 2 has on student enrollment in the course itself and on graduation pathway selection. During the data analysis process, comparisons between the percentages of students who complete Algebra 2 and the endorsement or graduation plans that they selected will be made for the school years prior to House Bill 5 going into effect and the years after. In addition, the demographics of the students will also be compared. The analysis is going to focus on identifying patterns that may exist across districts based on size and across educational service regions. For instance, Houston ISD requires all students to complete Algebra 2, no matter which endorsement plan is selected. So an analysis of the campuses within Region 4 may indicate that other districts within the region have enacted similar school board policies. Or is this just something that is common to only large districts rather than smaller districts? The goal is to provide information to educators like myself and policymakers who may find it useful for understanding and developing improvement efforts regarding college preparedness. In addition to sharing the information with U of H and members of the Texas Association of Supervisors of Mathematics, I've also reached out to the organizers for the State Mathematics Teacher Conference to share my findings at a session at CAMT, their annual conference.
Thank you. Appreciate that overview. Are there any comments or questions from the board members about this proposal? Right, I'm trying to learn the appropriate amount of time to allow silence before we move on. But one thing I did want to ask about is on page 15 of the proposal, there's some language about data files will be uploaded to a secure encrypted server. And so I was wondering what files was that referring to?
So all of the analysis that I will be doing is in R coding, and as a requirement of my graduate program, we're required to put it into the folders through Vanderbilt University. We're We're required to save data to that secure folder.
So remote access, though, would not allow for data to be moved from
Okay.
the remote access to another folder.
Okay.
So I might suggest a revision of that section.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments from the board about this, or? Do you know did you find the portion I was referring to?
I do know which portion you're talking about. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. All right, then do I have a move for approval of both the proposal with this amendment and for remote access?
This is Celeste. I move to approve remote access and the proposal with the language taken out about uploading it to the Vanderbilt server.
Thank you. Any second?
Greg Branch, I second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you so much. Right, moving to proposal number 2.
Hi, yes, I'm Susan Berghauser, and I am requesting approval for the study analysis of the impact of the Lone Star STEM project in Texas. The American Institutes for Research is conducting an independent evaluation of the implementation, fidelity, and impact of Lone Star STEM. Lone Star STEM aims to scale evidence-based college and career readiness school models across the state of Texas by expanding them in rural, urban, and suburban districts. Through the expansion of the college and career readiness school models, Lone Star STEM aims to increase high-quality STEM opportunities for greater numbers of high-need students, with a particular focus on implementing programs of study that help students gain the skills, post-secondary credentials, and experience necessary to embark on well-paying careers in computer science and the emerging field of cybersecurity. Lone Star STEM is led by Jobs for the Future in partnership with the Texas Education Agency and the University of Texas at Austin STEM Center. And we're seeking to answer the following research questions in our independent evaluation. 1, what is the impact of the Lone Star STEM project compared with business as usual on high school students? STAR Algebra 1 end of course assessment scores, the English 1 end of course assessment scores, the English 2 end of course assessment scores, their likelihood of earning Algebra 2 credits, their retention in high school, staying on track to graduate, earning dual enrollment credits, and becoming career and technical education completers. And we're also looking at whether the impact of Lone Star STEM is moderated by student and school characteristics, and then whether the program is implemented with fidelity, and what obstacles inhibit and enable successful implementation of Lone Star STEM. We're using a cluster randomized control trial with schools as a unit of assignment to determine the impact of Lone Star STEM on student outcomes, And then we're also collecting and analyzing implementation data gathered from site visits and interviews with program leadership and strategic partners, teacher surveys and documents to ensure that the program is implemented with fidelity.
Great, thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the board? I did have a question. So I was unclear on did the first year start already?
Yes, the project is already started, and
Okay.
we're at a point, where we need the student outcomes. So
Okay, so the 2019, it started with the 2019 cohort.
it actually started with the 2020 cohort.
Okay.
So we bumped a year with COVID related delays.
The only other thing I thought to mention, and I don't know if it would be useful, is if for the dual credit information, if that's a major piece of it, possibly having the higher ed information on that, because from the higher ed data on dual credit, you can get grades, that kind of thing. Whereas on the TA side, it's, receiving or completing it. So that was my only thought in looking at this. If dual credit is a major piece of it, there's some more detailed information on dual enrollment in the higher ed files.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're just interested in whether they enrolled and completed.
Got it.
Yeah.
Great. Any other comments or questions? All right. Do I have a motion to approve both the proposal and remote access?
This is Kathy. I move to approve the proposal and remote access.
Branch, I second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. Thank you. Right, so moving to proposal 3, UT Austin 155.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Schutte. And so the proposal that we're looking at now is dual enrollment equity pathways, also known as DEEP practices, transforming pathways to college success for underserved students. So this is a collaboration between myself and the Community College Research Center at Teachers College, and we're also working with the Texas Association of Community Colleges on some of the dissemination for this. We plan to use the ERC data to describe changes over time in access to dual enrollment opportunities, including which students are gaining access and the type of coursework that they're getting access to at different school and college partners throughout the state. And so a lot of the work will be descriptive information, though we also are going to include some regression so that we can include statistical controls and think about which students are getting access to dual credit opportunities and what their outcomes are, both for those who don't end up making it to college and those who do, to track them over time. And what we'll be doing that I think makes this a little different than some of the prior work in the state on dual credit is that we're going to be working to provide college school partners across the state with information about the pathways that they're offering to students, which students are gaining access. And the CCRC will be building some different data tools and visuals from the information that I can release from the ERC data so that these different institution partners can see, okay, like this is where we kind of started in, say, the 2011, 2012 cohort, and here's where we are now. And this is going to help them as they continue to backward map for their guided pathways reforms at the community colleges. So a lot of the institutions have been thinking about their pathways and how to make the pathways to the degrees that students want more effective. And so we're actually moving backwards into the high school years so that as students are starting to accrue those credits, they can be thinking, okay, how do we make sure that these credits count towards the pathway and the degree that I want? So that's kind of our our goal there. I'll stop with the overview there.
Sorry, I'm muted. Any questions or comments for Lauren? My only question is about requesting data back to 2002. Is that for information prior to high school for these cohorts?
Yes, because they're high school students, we want to be able to go back in time and basically capture their prior academic career for the earliest cohort that we had. And that's just when we start to think about the regressions where we want to be predicting who ends up in it. We want to make sure that we have adequate data so we don't get into trouble about, what had happened to them before. Though I think all the descriptive stuff is primarily going to rely on what happens that moment that they're starting the dual credit coursework. The regressions are going to want that detailed information about what happened prior.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the board? Kathy?
Sorry, it's a really silly comment, and maybe I'm just misreading, but on some of the TEA data, like the P other exit, I'm on page 26 of 27. It says 2011 to 2005. Is that right, or is that supposed to be? Is it just reversed in the way it's represented, or is it supposed to be 2011 to 2015? I'm sorry, the super in the weeds question.
A good catch.
Sorry, I'm trying to find it.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So it's in the types of data row.
And this was on, you said page 26?
It's on page 26 of 27 in the PDF that I have. So it's probably at the end of.
In the remote access form is where I'm seeing it at the end of the.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
The other exit. Oh yeah, that has to be wrong. I don't remember filling this out, the remote access.
No, it was probably my fault. I would say if we could approve what's listed in the proposal as opposed to whatever I ended up putting in that template. And
I
can change the template.
I think what we typically had said, unless it was a data set that we knew ended, because some of them did and switched to something else, it's most recent available because we want to keep adding it as the data comes in.
It's a Greg Branch here. I want to second Celeste's suggestion regarding simply allowing the data description, the data request in the proposal itself to dominate.
Right.
The reason being that my understanding of this form is that while it's allowable to list all of the data, the spreadsheet that indicated the categories to be populated in these remote access fields didn't require enumeration of the actual data requested. And I think we've always considered the data request in the proposal itself to be the formal data request.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I just wanted to make sure that that you're getting what you need.
Great. Yeah, that sounds good. Then I will, before I move on, any other questions, comments? All right. So do we have a motion that includes the approval of the proposal and remote access?
This is Kathy. I move to approve the proposal and remote access and the UT Austin's ERC modification of the remote access data list as needed for their records.
Great, thank you. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is good discussion for me too, as I'm learning what takes precedence over over what. So I appreciate the discussion. All right, so moving to proposal 4, my notes here say that this was it's UT Austin 156, Dana Center Math Pathways. We did receive a revision for this proposal on June 8th that updated the researchers included for remote access. So you all should have received that. Do we have someone to talk about this proposal?
Yes. Hi, can you hear me? This is Susan Sapanic, and I'm a senior researcher at MDRC, which is a social and education policy research organization. And for the Dana Center Math Pathways, DCMP long-term follow-up study, MDRC has been funded by the Institute of Education Sciences to conduct a rigorous evaluation of the long-term impacts of DCMP, which is a developmental education reform created by the Charles A. Dana Center at University of Texas, Austin. And it both accelerates developmental math coursework and creates a math pathway more aligned with social sciences, health, and liberal arts professions. This is an extension of an earlier study which found that DCMP had positive impacts on students' completion of the developmental math sequence, increasing both their likelihood of taking and passing college-level math and the number of math credits they earned during their first 3 semesters. The original study was a randomized control trial that included over 1,400 students across 4 colleges and 10 campuses and met What Works Clearinghouse standards without reservations. The extension study allows us to further explore the effect of DCMP on these same students' long-term academic progress and their success by looking at the effects on credit accumulation, degree completion, and transfer to 4-year institutions over a 5-year period. Since many of the students in the study transferred from the original participating community colleges to other institutions across Texas, the ERC administrative data would allow us to track their progress across Texas institutions over the 5-year period of the study. This is an important study because the majority of students entering community colleges are assessed in need of developmental education, and too few of those students ever complete these courses and are able to move on to college coursework and degree completion or transfer to a 4-year college. Findings from this research would help the field know not only whether and how alternative math pathways may improve developmental level students' math progress, but also whether and how improvements in math progress can be expected to move the needle on college completion rates. These findings will be critical to inform the practices of hundreds of colleges currently implementing multiple math pathway reforms, and for the many colleges across Texas that use the Dana Center Math Pathways program. And we're happy to answer any questions that you have about the study.
Any questions or comments for the researcher? And this is a request just for 1 year, is that correct? 1 year of access?
Yes.
I have a note that in one place it says 3 years, but I can't find that right now. So maybe that's.
No, we're requesting the data after all of the entire 5 years has elapsed, which will be in 2022.
Got it. All right. That's the only question I had. Anyone else? All right. Do I have a motion to approve the proposal and remote access?
Branch, I move to approve proposal for UTA 156, Dana Center Mathematics Pathways, long-term follow-up study, and effective development math reform, and accompanying remote access request.
Second, Gary.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right, moving to proposal 5, UTA 157, reforming assessment into developmental education and building the research base. This also, we received a revision on June 8th that, again, just updated the researchers included for remote access. So do we have someone here to?
Hi, I'm Dan Cullinan, project director for the Center Analysis of Post-Secondary Readiness Multiple Measures Assessment projects. And we are, I'm requesting approval for this reforming assessment into developmental education and building the research base. We're partnering with THECB to take a look, particularly in the wake of some of the COVID-19 revisions and exemptions that were given to colleges, giving them a little more flexibility in how they place students, not only using the TSIA, but also things like high school GPA and other measures, to see what form of multiple measures would be most useful for potential scaling to wider use throughout the state, depending on, of course, THECB policy. But what will inform that policy will be the use of these ERC data to take a look at the demographic kind of current state of placement, how students are being placed, how that might vary across different subgroups, and then to look historically, doing some predictive analyses at students' available measures, particularly high school transcript type measures, but also background questions and other measures and their eventual performance in college level courses, to see whether or not these patterns match research we've done across the country, with high school GPA being the kind of predominant use of a background information in placement, or if there are others that present themselves in this work. And then we would work with the THECB to look at the cost and implementation options and trade-offs with any multiple measures system, and how we can best support colleges in the state or higher ed institutions to use these measures in an efficient way.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? All right. I don't have any notes on this because you did put in, there's some supplemental data from the coordinating board, which will be added eventually, but do I have a motion for approval of the proposal and the remote access?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve proposal 5, including its accompanying remote access request for EPA 157 reforming assessment into developmental education, building the research base.
A second?
I'll second, Celeste.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
All right, proposal 6 is the one that we agreed we'll move to the end. So we'll move on to proposal 7.
Hi, I'm Liz Barkowski. Hi, Liz Barkowski with American Institutes for Research, and I am requesting approval for a new research project to examine early progress and outputs of the Texas Grow Your Own Teachers Grant Program. And this project really stemmed initially from a partnership between AIR and the Texas Education Agency to examine some of the initial kind of school and district level data related to the Grow Your Own Grant Program. And through those conversations and that work, the Texas Education Agency and the staff working on this program was really interested in learning about what kinds of changes or progress or outputs occurred within school districts that received a Grow Your Own grant from the Texas Education Agency. And the primary goal or purpose of the Grow Your Own Grant program is to diversify the teacher workforce and address teacher recruitment and retention challenges, specifically in smaller or rural districts. But I think this project and this research study will be very timely, since diversifying the teacher workforce and focusing on providing equitable opportunities to students is really at the forefront in the education community right now. So through this project and this research study, our team proposes to examine outputs associated with two primary components or activities that are funded by the Grow Your Own grant. The first is or intends to recruit high school students into the teaching profession by providing them with and having students enroll in education and training coursework, which provides students with an introduction to the teaching profession and what the teaching profession entails, with the ultimate goal of those students completing those courses and then eventually transitioning into a college major and a career in teaching. And the other Grow Your Own grant component that we will examine as part of the study is an activity to encourage and provide funding and support for paraprofessionals who are currently working in schools, and provide paraprofessionals with funding and support to receive or pursue a bachelor's degree and or enroll and complete a teacher preparation program, again, with the goal of bringing up those paraprofessionals and bringing them into the teaching profession, again, with the goal of diversifying the teacher workforce through that paraprofessional pool and providing more teachers for the schools in which they work. So as part of the study, we'll really examine some of the outputs and participation in both education and training courses for high school students. And we will examine the degree to which paraprofessionals completed a teacher prep program, obtained a teaching certificate, and ended up teaching within the Grow Your Own grant districts. And the study is primarily descriptive. So we will examine, again, student enrollment, completion data of those courses. We'll also look at changes over time in enrollment, comparing before versus after Grow Your Own grants to see if participation in education training courses among high school students increased or changed after those grant activities took place. And I think, again, this study will provide, we hope, relevant information to TEA about the again, some of those early progress and outcomes of this program to determine if they want to make programmatic changes to the grant, and to also tout some of the successes of the grant program. And we feel that this project will also provide a lot of relevant information to the larger field, since Grow Your Own grants and Grow Your Own type activities are being implemented by many states across the country.
Wonderful. Thank you for that overview. Any questions or comments from the board? My only question was, and I'm not as familiar with the Grow Your Own, but I wondered, especially for the paraprofessional outcomes, would it at all be helpful to know if they have enrolled in higher ed? Would that be an outcome that could be affected by the program?
Yes, and we will have that data from the Texas Education Agency as part of the grantee reports that the districts provide back to TEA. Yep. And the numbers of paraprofessionals who participated in the program are somewhat small. And for that reason, we didn't request the higher ed data, since that would be a lot of data for, again, very little gain, potentially little gain.
Sure.
Since, we'll have that information. But that's a great question. And we also did not request teacher certification data, because we will have the names of individuals who participated in that route as part of the grant. So we can look up those names of those individuals to see if they did obtain a certification on the SBEC website.
Great, thank you. All right, questions or comments? All right, then do I have a motion for approval for Project UTA 159 for both approving the proposal and the remote access.
This is Kathy. I move to approve the proposal and remote access.
Thank you.
Branch, I second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Right, motion passes. Thank you very much, Liz. Right. Proposal 8, UT Austin 160, non-achievement based indicators of school performance in Texas. Do we have someone here that can give an overview?
Hey there. Can y'all hear me? This is Marshall Garland.
Yes.
Hi there.
Welcome.
Thanks for considering our proposal. I'm a researcher on this project from Gibson Consulting Group and the Regional Education Laboratory Southwest. The title, which you can see, is Non-Achievement-Based Indicators of School Performance in Texas. It's a REL Southwest project, and it originated from conversations between REL Southwest and TEA program staff from the Division of School Improvement. Members of the partnership from TEA are interested, or were interested, and actually continue to be, in exploring how to identify struggling schools without relying solely on student assessment data. The interest was prompted by COVID-related disruptions in state testing, but also by disruptions in recent years caused by natural disasters. The purpose of the study is to explore how malleable non-test based measures, including student behavior, course taking, other non-academic measures, and educator characteristics are related to school performance ratings. Most of the data required for this project is actually going to be pulled from publicly available sources, but there are some indicators that we're interested in assessing the sort of predictive performance of that we'll have to construct using student and staff microdata that are available through the ERC. But most of, like I said, most of the information is going to be coming from the voluminous reports that are available from TEA on schools and districts. With that, I'll answer any questions you have or any feedback you have.
No other questions or comments from the board?
I have one question. Marshall, you asked for, or you mentioned you were looking for 6-week attendance data. And it looks like your research or your data request only specifies attend demog. I didn't know if you wanted to specify attend student, or were you looking for the 6-week data as well?
So I think that's, it should include both 6-week and cumulative. So the P attends, I sometimes confuse those. The student one is the 6-week and is the demog the cumulative one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great catch. Yes, we will want 6-week attendance data. So I can amend that table to include that data request table to include that table.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
and then just, I found this a very intriguing proposal. How are you going to use the certification data? Is it a measure of how many teachers are certified as a measure of performance, something like that?
Yeah, there's a few indicators. One is the percentage of teachers, if we can determine this, that are teaching outside of their field, but also as an aggregate measure of percentage of certified teachers.
Okay. Okay, great.
I didn't see that the teacher. I had thought at some point that some of that information was available publicly through the teacher certification reports the TEA provides, but I couldn't find them.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda, for those clarifying questions. Anyone else? All right, do I have a motion for the approval of UTA 160 with the amendment of it adding the additional data file as well as approval of remote access.
Greg Branch here. I move that we approve Proposal 8, along with its accompanying remote access request, UTA 160, non-achievement-based indicators of school performance in Texas, with the amendment that 6-week attendance also be added to its data request for the same years as attendee model.
Great.
This is Kathy. I second. Whoever just seconded can second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you, Marshall.
Thank you. Thanks again, Linda, for catching that.
All right, Proposal 9. UTL SIN 161, English language proficiency in Texas before and during COVID-19 pandemic. Do you have researcher here to give an overview?
Yes, this is David Osman, also with Gibson Consulting Group, working with the Regional Education Laboratory Southwest, and AIR and TEA on this project. And we're seeking approval for the English language proficiency in Texas before and during the COVID-19 pandemic. And this work explores English language learners' English proficiency before and after the COVID-19 pandemic, and the research idea was developed in collaboration with TEA to see potential changes in students' English proficiency after the pandemic, and then also to explore some of these malleable factors which might be occurring within schools in the 2020-2021 school year, which might be correlated with students' English proficiency in the 2021 TELPAS administration window. Yeah, so I'll open up for any questions at this point.
Great, thank you. I did want to ask Linda if you had any, I noticed the footnote about it was unclear what type of data TEA has on the learning environment. So I didn't know, Linda, if you had any comments on that and how it might affect the availability of data they're asking for.
Thanks, Melissa. Yes, we do have crisis codes. So we know whether students were remote or on campus. So we can add those data as supplemental for this project.
Great, thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, do have a motion to approve UT Austin 161 proposal and remote access request.
And also add the supplemental data.
Yeah, it is mentioned already in the proposal. It was just noted in a footnote. It was unclear what it was. So but this is a good question. Do we need to amend that to be clear?
Maybe just to be safe, since it's indicated as unclear. So I'll try a motion. This is Kathy. I move to approve Proposal 9, including remote access, and with clarification that the supplemental data requested in footnote is available and will be included as part of the data provided.
Beautiful motion, yes.
Greg Branch, I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
All right, Proposal 10. UT Austin 162, short-term and long-term impact of higher education faculty. Anyone?
Hi, everyone. Yes.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Lena Shi. Thanks so much for organizing this. So my project evaluates the role of faculty quality in higher education on short-term and long-term student outcomes. And the motivation is really that, we know that faculty matter for colleges, instructional spending represents the largest expense on average at public 2 years and 4 years. And we know that faculty matter to students, who often cite instructors as the most important factor for their learning and their growth. But despite the importance of faculty, particularly in the public sector, there are very few, if any, estimates of faculty quality in public higher education. And we also know very little about faculty impacts on student outcomes, both beyond a single course or the follow-up course. So this study aims to fill those gaps by first estimating faculty quality and validating those estimates, particularly in the developmental and first-year courses. And then I'll estimate the effects of high-quality instructor on short-term and long-term student outcomes, such as major choice, graduation, and career outcomes, as well as gaps by race and socioeconomic status. And then finally, I will describe the characteristics of high quality instructors to understand what makes them effective. So for example, is it teaching load? Is it past experience? Is it tenure status? Trying to understand those factors. So my hope is that the findings can be informative for Texas and other higher education systems and colleges that aim to improve instructional quality and student outcomes.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board?
So it sounds like you're saying the student outcomes will include like post-graduation or post, I guess you could be completion of school, whether positive or negative, and looking at what employment over time and earnings over time?
Yes,
and
exactly.
That's the need for the TWC data?
Exactly, yes.
Okay. And I thought I remembered seeing something in there that suggested that perhaps wages might also be used as either a proxy or an element of identifying higher quality teachers under the assumption that they're paid more because they're better, but I wasn't sure about that.
Yes, it would also be great to use the salary information to understand, characteristics of high quality faculty, as you described. Are they the ones who are compensated more or less? One other thing we could also look at is, we know that many instructors, especially in community colleges, also work outside of the education sector. So, how does outside employment affect instructional quality in college? And we can kind of include some of those factors as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would assume, though, that you'll have to kind of geographically adjust things because based on the institution and where it is and what kind of a normal level of pay is for each one. That's fascinating. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. That's a great point.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Do we have a motion for approval of UT Austin 162 for remote access and the approval and the proposal, excuse me.
I move to approve proposal 10, including the accompanying remote access request for EPA 162, short-term and long-term impact of higher education faculty.
I'll second. This is Celeste.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, motion passes. Thank you, Lena. All right, proposal 11, UT Austin 163, early life determinants of later life incarceration among Texas public school students. Do we have someone here to speak about this?
Yes, I will, Seth Miller. Okay, so this project seeks to link ERC data with later life incarceration data from the Texas Department of Criminal Justice via a supplemental data request to determine what factors are associated with incarceration in school and in early life. And of course, incarceration is an outcome that severely affects individuals, families, and communities. There's a growing literature that looks at early life circumstances and long-run criminal behavior, but the specific channels by which people are sent on a path to criminal activity and eventually incarceration are not completely clear at this time. This project allows us to investigate the role of educational factors as well as external factors that happen during school-aged years that may affect this long-run outcome. And of course, these external factors we'll be looking at. We'll also be looking at how educational circumstances and, to a degree, labor market outcomes are mediating and mitigating factors. So as part of this project, we're going to be looking at a few broad research questions, such as what are the effects of early life peer exposure on adult incarceration, specifically digging into disciplinary alternative education programs and the peers that you have for students that are sent to those programs, the types of peers that they have when they're sent there. We'll also be looking at the role of teachers and school staff and influencing students' later life outcomes to see if traditional measures of teacher value added are predictive or seem to affect whether students are eventually incarcerated in the Texas prison system, as well as whether school resource officers present at a child's school affect these things. As for external factors, we'll be looking at what we're referring to in the proposal as neighborhood factors. Maybe neighborhood isn't a completely accurate term. Really, we're talking about things present in the child's school attendance area, which is a much more granular geography than is often available for some of these things. Whether long run lead exposure causes reduced academic performance and eventual incarceration, as well as the effects of other ambient pollution. And then finally, whether there are any government policies such as the Medicaid expansions that happened throughout the 1990s and early 2000s affected children, and we can assign measures of Medicaid access based on a child's general socioeconomic status and age, as that varies over time. Just one quick note about the linkage. The Texas Department of Criminal Justice data has historically been public data. We'll be linking on name and date of birth, and they've historically publicly disclosed this as well. So that is something that is available to us to link in on the student level as applicable. So thank you so much for considering our request.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? All right, sorry, I have lots of documents open. Oh, no, that's for the next one. All right, do I have a motion for approval of UT Austin 163?
Branch, I move that we approve Proposal 11 and the company of remote access request for UTA 163, early life determinants of later life incarceration among Texas public school students.
I'll second Celeste.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
All right, thank you all so much.
Right, moving to Proposal 12. There we go. UT Austin 164, short and long-term impacts of neighborhood revitalization on student outcomes. Is someone here to?
Yeah. Hi. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Yusam Choi, and I'm a graduate student in UT Austin Economics Department, and I'm requesting approval for this proposal, short and long-term impacts of neighborhood revitalization on student outcomes. So this study is about the impact of neighborhood revitalization on students' outcomes, and it comes from like a very large literature of economics that severe neighborhood segregation in U.S. is one of the factors that makes children from poor households even harder to succeed, and that this even further boosts such segregation of neighborhoods. And of course, like there has been federal or more local level of efforts to reverse this vicious cycle. And historically, there is community development block grants to develop these disadvantaged neighborhoods. Hope 6 program that demolishes and revitalizes old and like deteriorated public housings and its surrounding neighborhoods. And after that, Obama administration continued such an agenda with Choice Neighborhood Initiative and so on. So some people welcome such neighborhood revitalization program, NRPs, and says they improve neighborhood poverties, offers better living conditions, and more employment opportunities with less crime rates. But some others argue that they provide little opportunities to original poor households, just displacing them from their own neighborhoods by making rents become higher and so on. So I think Texas ERC data offers a very unique opportunity that makes me able to track down a very large pool of individual students so that I can answer many unanswered questions about these programs, like how does NRPs affect students' outcomes, including like short-term outcomes like test scores, or even longer-term outcomes such as later life earnings or employment. And another question is like, what happens to student composition of each school after the program redevelops each neighborhood? And third, like, how does these effects of this program vary across like different properties of each program? So, and I hope like this proposal can provide insight of how really this neighborhood revitalization program works for own local residents. Thank you.
All right. Any questions or comments for the researcher?
I had a point of clarification regarding the use of wage records. It sounded like you were hoping to use those to identify neighborhoods, income levels, and things like that within the broader population. Am I correct in that?
So sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. So I was talking about the use of TWC wage records, the unemployment insurance amount, or the wage amounts that are reported by employers every quarter. Mm-hmm. And we get these on 13 to 14 million people every quarter, depending on, you know, what the economy is doing. But what I was trying to find out is, are you trying to use that data to in some way identify lower income or higher income neighborhoods based on kind of the earnings of people who live in those areas? Or were the wages going to be tied directly to individual student records and not so much trying to serve as a proxy for overall, you know, neighborhood income levels?
I could use such variables for measuring the neighborhood income level. So that is also one way to measure income level. And another like way to measure such income levels was using other public data like ACS or like census data. So yeah, there are like multiple ways of measuring income levels, and that's definitely like one of the reasons, like one of the ways to measure income levels. Yeah, definitely.
Right, but so what specifically is the TWC giving you access to the ERC for this data? What part of the project is that going to inform?
So sorry, like, can you say the question again? Like, what part of the question?
You've asked for access to the wage records, and I'm just trying to understand better how they're going to be used in the study. Because, again, if you're thinking that they're going to provide information about neighborhoods or whatnot, as opposed to individual students or people in programs, that's not going to work because the wage records don't have geographic data associated with them. Like everybody who works at 7-Eleven in Texas has the same, you know, the wage record comes in with the same address on it because it's all based on corporate headquarters. They don't literally do it by where people live or work.
So for one, one objective for the data is to measure the neighborhood income level, and the second one was that, so is the data part you're referring to?
I do see in research question 1 that, you know, long-term.
I was trying to like track down long-term outcomes, like in terms of earnings of like each student's.
Yeah,
like,
and it works for that. I just was going to caution you about trying to use it for the neighborhood. That's all. I was going to suggest that census ACS type data is much more accurate, would get you to the kinds of questions you want to know about in terms of identifying low-income neighborhoods or affluent neighborhoods or things like that. That's all. Our data just doesn't go there. That's all.
Oh yeah,
but it'll help you with the student stuff.
Like as long as I can like track down, it doesn't matter whether or not like each student like in terms of like neighborhoods, like what I concern is whether or not each student was exposed to the neighborhood revitalization in their school age. So
got it.
After they're exposed to the neighborhood revitalization, it doesn't matter where they live or work. Like it only matters like how they perform in the labor market after they grow up and become adults, after they were exposed to this revitalization program in the childhood age, and like so on. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, sorry.
No, thanks for that point of clarification, Adam. Any other questions or comments? I did know, I think in the checklist included, I think that might be copied over from another one because it includes different people in it. Lauren Schutte.
Oh yeah. I think that is a typo. Yeah,
and then and are you requesting 4 years of access or 2? Because I think like in my proposal I wrote down as 3, but I'm not sure why it is. I don't think I like wrote them down by myself like these 2. Yeah, because like I didn't write this like checklist down by myself. Okay. So I just want to make sure we know which year are we following, because I think the remote access says 4, the checklist says 2, and then you mentioned in your proposal you said 3. So which? Yeah, I made the proposal as 3 years, but okay. Yeah. So we would just need to ask for updating of the remote access.
I can do that. Okay.
And the checklist docs. Great. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Do I have a motion for approval of proposal 12, including remote access?
Greg Branch here. I move that we approve proposal 12, including remote access request. UTA 164, short and long-term impacts of neighborhood revitalization on student outcomes.
This is Kathy. I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you for being here with us today. Next proposal. Here we go. Next proposal is proposal 13, UT Austin 165, course withdrawal and student success. Do we have someone to give background on this?
Hi.
Welcome.
My name is Ibrahim. I am a PhD candidate at the University of Texas at Austin. In my dissertation proposal, I will examine course withdrawal behaviors in Texas public higher education institutions. And specifically, I will first look at descriptive patterns among community college students and four-year students. Then I will examine predictors of course withdrawal, and I will look at relationship between course withdrawal and student outcomes, including persistence, degree attainment, time to degree, and total access credits. even though course withdrawal is, is costly for students, colleges, and taxpayers, there is a little research about this topic, and there's no research, as far as I know, by using statewide administrative data or national representative sample. So also this study will not directly examine Texas policy, but it will inform Texas 6 withdrawal policy for academic reasons. So if you have questions, I will happily answer it.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? All right. I will say I found your appendix very useful. It was very well laid out and organized, and it helped a lot in understanding what you were asking for. So thank you for that. Do I have a motion for approval for Proposal 13, UT Austin 165, and remote access?
Branch, I move that we approve Proposal 13, including accompanying remote access requests, UTA 165, course withdrawal, and student success.
Second, Gary.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving to Proposal 14. UT Dallas 146, the relationship between diversifying the professoriate, student academic outcomes, and persistent post-secondary achievement gaps across race and ethnicity.
Good afternoon. My name is Rodney Andrews. I'm at UT Dallas. This is work with my colleague Trey Miller, also at the University of Texas at Dallas, Michael Gottfried, a faculty member at the University of Pennsylvania, and Taylor Odell, a PhD student at the University of Pennsylvania. So what we propose to research is the relationship between the race and ethnicity of the instructor and the college student and its effect on academic outcomes. There's a literature in K through 12 that finds significant evidence that the race or ethnicity of instructors matters with regards to students' performance in K through 12. However, we're unaware of evidence that suggests that similar relationships exist in post-secondary education. And so we propose to study the effects of student-instructor matching in post-secondary education using the rich data made available to us by the University of Texas at Dallas ERC. We propose to answer a set of 4 questions. The first is, to what extent the same race instructor matching occur? And this is just a descriptive exercise, where we document the extent to which a student is likely to incur an instructor of the same race or ethnicity. Our second question asks, does having a same race instructor impact students' outcomes, which include course completion, persistence, transfer, and completion, other outcomes? Our third question is, we ask, how does the impact of same race instructor vary across course types? So here we're thinking maybe developmental education, upper lower division. How does it vary with particular majors? For example, the liberal arts or STEM, and college types, 2-year versus 4-year, MSIs, HBCUs, and PWIs as well. And fourth, does the impact of same race education instructor vary across student subgroups, where we look at dimensions of academic achievement, of course, the race of the student, gender, age, and as best as we can measure, socioeconomic status. Given the renewed emphasis on diversity in the professoriate, we posit that our study could provide some information that would be useful to policymakers as they think about the makeup of the professoriate going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have some really interesting proposals this time having to do with higher ed faculty, which is really interesting. Any comments or questions from the board? All right. Do I have a motion to approve Proposal 14, UTD 146, and remote access?
Yeah, this is Celeste. I move to approve remote access and proposal UTD 146.
A second.
This is Adam. I'll second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Proposal 15, UTD 147, estimating value added and match effects in higher education. Do we have a researcher here for?
Yes, hi, this is Jack Mountjoy from the University of Chicago. Hi, everybody. This is my my fourth ERC proposal, so it's great to see many of you this time around. As the title suggests, we are interested in estimating value added and match effects in higher education. The basic motivating fact for this project is that student outcomes vary dramatically across different college campuses, but that does not necessarily suggest that schools have differential effectiveness on student outcomes, right? Because different types of students systematically enroll in different types of institutions. So the basic goal of the paper is to try to separate these massive sort of raw differences that we see across campuses into how much is due to causal effectiveness of the institutions themselves on student outcomes versus just the sorting of different types of students into different types of schools. So we're going to build on the shoulders of giants here, including both Rodney and Trey, who are on the call. They've done some prior work in this area. And we're going to try to answer four main questions. The first is, just do some colleges have higher value added than others on a whole host of student outcomes? And we're going to try to look at more outcomes than have been looked at in prior work. The second question is to then, once we have these value-added measures for each college, ask how well do observable characteristics of each college, like selectivity or per student spending, predict such causal value added? The third question would be, do the colleges that have higher value added on some outcomes, like graduation rates, also have higher value added on other outcomes, like earnings in the labor market? And the fourth question would be, do these value-added differences across campuses systematically themselves vary across different types of students, potentially inducing match effects between certain types of students and certain types of colleges? So the basic methodology that we're going to use to try to get this off the ground that Trey Miller has pioneered in the past and some previous work has also looked at in other settings is to compare students who apply to and get into the same set of institutions, but then end up enrolling in different schools. So the basic idea there is that the average student at UT Austin and the average student at UT El Paso are going to differ on all kinds of dimensions prior to coming into college, and that's likely also going to reflect forward in their outcomes. So we wouldn't want to attribute all of their differences to the schools they attended. What we want to do instead is compare two students who both applied to and got into both UT Austin and UT El Paso, and then within that much more homogeneous group of students, compare the student who went to UT Austin to the student who went to UT El Paso. And a big part of the methodological contribution that we're trying to do here is to do a lot of robustness checks to assure that this methodology really is isolating sort of apples to apples comparisons of similar types of students. Do these students who share the same application and admission portfolio tend to look very similar on test scores and family background and other demographics prior to college that does not depend on sort of the school that they end up attending. So a big part of the paper will be to try to reassure readers, that this methodology really is isolating good apples to apples comparisons of similar students who attend different colleges. So I'll stop there, and I'd be happy to take any questions on the details.
Thank you. And I will note we did receive a revision for this, which removed the request for SAT and ACT files separately. So you all should have received that yesterday, I believe. Any comments or questions? All right. Do I have a motion for approval of Proposal 15, UTD 147, and remote access.
This is Celeste. I move to approve remote access and proposal UTD 147.
Adam, I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. All right. Proposal 16. UTD 148, determining risk of campuses based on neighborhood and student factors.
Hello, it's Steve Rifkin here. Nice to see everybody.
Hey.
So do you want a brief summary or?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I think that that this is built on some prior work that was done by Houston ISD and really speaks to the question of the fact that different students have different challenges and needs, and these must be addressed by schools. And so what this research would like to do is to understand better the association between poverty and other factors on the one hand and achievement on the other, using both the ERC data and data from the American Community Survey, and then seeing, about how adjusting for factors changes the way in which schools are ranked, in terms of their effectiveness. And so to understand better the sensitivity of those to these measures that are related to student challenges.
Great. Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board? All right, do I have a motion for approval of Proposal 16, UTD 148, and remote access?
This is Celeste. I move to approve remote access and proposal UTD 148.
And do I have a second?
This is Kathy. I'll second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you too. All right, and now we are at Proposal 6, was it?
6.
Yes, going back to that. Did Dr. Villarreal to join? Wonderful. Okay. So Proposal 6, UT Austin 158, Pathways to Educational Success using integrated data to improve educational outcomes for students with a history of foster care. So we would love to hear an overview.
Thank you. And I'm
Good afternoon.
Go ahead, Megan. You go first.
Sure. I'm Megan Peel with the Department of Social Work at UTSA and joined by my colleague Mike Villarreal with the Urban Education Institute, also at UTSA, and excited to share some background on our proposal for Pathways to Educational Success to use integrated data to improve educational outcomes for students with a history of foster care. So the Bexar County Fostering Educational Success Pilot Project is funded by the Texas State Legislature to improve college access, retention, and graduation rates, specifically for students with a history of foster care. It includes a cross-system collaboration between UTSA, Texas A&M San Antonio, the Alamo Colleges District, as well as our partners at the Department of Family and Protective Services, Child Advocates San Antonio, and the Bexar County Children's Court to create a pipeline of educational support, such as campus-based support programs, a specialty court, college-bound docket, and innovative pre-college programming. So we're interested in obviously understanding the impact of that programming on educational and employment outcomes, specifically for students with a history of foster care,
as well as examining earlier predictors of educational success that can be used to improve educational supports and programming. And I'll turn it back over to Mike to talk a bit more about the ERC data and analysis plan.
Thank you, Megan. So we're proposing to conduct a longitudinal explanatory non-experimental research design to identify the effect sizes of this program, BCFES, and the outcomes of interest are on post-secondary educational student outcomes, such as annual persistence, degree completion, both associate's and bachelor's degree. But we're also interested in earning outcomes, workforce outcomes for those who complete college and those who do not pursue a college education. We want to investigate heterogeneous effects. And so our research questions 3 and 4 get at those. To what extent do attributes of foster care placement interact with the intervention that we're studying? And these attributes are really important, and we believe they are time variant, which is part of the reason why we're asking for as much data going back to 2000, because we believe that the timing of certain events are likely to have varying impacts. So how long was a student in foster care, the length of stay per placement, youth adoption or aging out of foster care, types of maltreatment, types of services received. The second set of heterogeneous effects that we want to explore have to do with social and demographic attributes of the foster care youth. And that's represented in our fourth and last research question. The tactics that we are going to employ, the specific methodologies to identify effect sizes are going to be inverse propensity score weighing with regression adjustment. So this is a doubly robust method for getting at effect sizes. We will also explore opportunities to use to identify if there are any instrumental variables, and to explore as an alternative method as a robustness check on our estimates. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that overview. Any questions or comments from the board? All right.
I have one.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Great. No, go for it.
This study was through like 23, right?
Yes.
You wanted like wage data through 23, and your project length is through 23 also? Because you're not going to be able to get the wage data for all of the wage data for 23 before we reach calendar year 24. And so if the project isn't, doesn't have a ton of runway on the back end for you to do the analysis, it's a concern.
For that cohort, you are right. We will happy to amend that now and then come back to you with an extension. This is an ongoing concern of the Texas legislature. This particular intervention was funded in the last session and refunded in this session. We included that cohort to, as you would imagine, improve our sample size.
Sure. No, and I'm not doubting the interest or the value of the work. I just, like I said, wanted to make sure that we weren't setting you up in a position where you weren't going to be able to complete the work, because the data through December of 23 will be about 99% complete at the end of March of 24. And then assumedly at that point, you'll need some time to, connect it and do your analysis. And so that's all.
No, thank you for pointing that out.
So is the preference to amend the current proposal, or Michael, or extension?
I'm happy to do either, whatever you feel comfortable with. We could either amend the proposal by lopping off one cohort or shaving off the data requests for 2023. And then if we get to the point where we have funding to continue the study, we can come back with an amendment or an extension request.
Or you could go in and request 3 years today.
Yeah.
And if you don't use 3 years, then that's okay too.
Okay. Well, then that's lovely also.
Which would save us an extension meeting. So,
yes, exactly.
That'd be great.
Great. Any other comments or questions? Well, then do I have a motion to approve Proposal 6, UT Austin 158, with the amendment of an added year in remote access?
This is Adam proposed, or
Go ahead.
Either way.
No, go ahead. Please, Adam.
Yeah, so I proposed that or put that up for. Why can't I think of the term? I'm never the first person. That's why the problem is. Motion made. Yes, that's it. Move that we go ahead and accept the proposal with a 1-year extension from what was originally, amendment from what was originally in the proposal. And remote access.
Great.
Branch, I'll second.
Wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
We're doing great for time. I was overwhelmed with the number of proposals, but we're doing really well. So I believe that's the end of the new proposal. So the final piece is consideration and possible action to approve remote access for a commissioner-directed project. So this was sent maybe today. The UH Commissioner Directive 2101 with Brookings. I will ask, I do not think we have someone from Brookings on, but I might as well ask. Don't think so. Okay, but this is a project that the commissioner has been partnering with Brookings to help define credentials of value. So they are proposing to use ERC data to help do this. Questions or comments on this?
While the ERC may not have all the different types of credentials of value, I'm kind of curious as to whether or not the proposal would go outside the ERC to try to identify certifications and credentials that are offered that are not reported to the co-board. And I'm thinking specifically about shorter term certificate programs. My understanding is that certifications that have less than 140 contact hours are not reported, and 140 to like 320 are optional. So there's a lot of credentialing going on that's below radar, but may still be of high value.
Yes, I think that's a good point.
I mean, I don't know whether that's within scope of the study or not. Obviously, it would be hard to do in the ERC. It's just to publish something called credentials of value and to only be fishing in one pool. It's kind of like, freshwater, saltwater, you're going to find some different fish.
Yes.
And by the way, I don't fish, so I don't know where that came from.
They did ask for supplemental data of the licensure data that TEA has, which has a little more information, but Adam, you're right. There is limited information on credentials outside of, we do have level 1 and level 2 certifications that are less than associates. So some of those will be captured. But Yes, you're right. And I imagine that might be something that they come out of this suggesting, is that there needs to be more information on that. But they have been advised as to what data is available.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Do I have a motion to approve remote access for this commissioner-directed project?
I move to approve remote access for this project.
Greg Branch, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, so the next piece of the agenda, next to last, update and potential discussion on timeline and progress for the interagency agreement regarding requirements for commissioner-directed projects. Speaking of commissioner-directed projects, my update on this is that there's nothing new since the last time Julie gave an update on this. But since this has happened, the first meeting post-transition has happened, I think this will pick up. And I think our goal was to be able to bring something to the group in the September meeting. So that's still the goal. Any questions? I don't know if I would have any updates, but if there's something specific you wonder if it has happened, I'm happy to answer that. But I don't have any other major updates on this topic. All right, then any other comments, questions before we adjourn? I appreciate your patience today, and you all made it a very easy first meeting for me, and it was quicker than I ever expected. So you all have this down to a science, and thank you to all the researchers who came on today and told us about their research. I'm excited to see how all of this goes, and look forward to being in contact with everyone in the future. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Greg Branch, I'll move to adjourn with the addition of an expression of gratitude to Gary Dworkin for his service with great appreciation.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Absolutely.
I third all of that.
Thank you all.
Wonderful. I don't know. Do I need to do the all in favor for adjournment? All in favor for adjournment?
Aye.
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 Maybe I'll learn later. I don't need to do this piece. Any opposed for adjournment? All right, then motion passes and we are adjourned. Thank you all for all your hard work on this, and appreciate the board for all the time this takes. And again, thank you to Gary. Your work is very important, so we appreciate you.
Bye all.
Right. Thank you.
Take care. Good luck, Gary.
Bye all.
Thank you.